Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Women Racing to Win. Joe Samaniego here, down with Sari from Racers, the girls behind the helmet. We encourage everyone to comment in the chat room. We have a lot to discuss about, including the Indianapolis 500, where we saw Simona de Silvestro return back to Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the first time since 2015, when she last raced the Indianapolis 500. This year, she is joining Beth Paretta's team, Paretta Autosport, and it's mostly a female-led team, so it's very exciting to see this brand new team take place for the Indianapolis 500, and especially considering last year we didn't have a female racer, which was really unfortunate to have the team here with a mostly female-led effort. Really great. They have a technical alliance with Team Penske. Usually when you have a technical alliance with Team Penske at Indianapolis, that'll bring results and speed. That wasn't the case exactly this year. Both Simona and Will Power, one of the prominent Team Penske drivers, were both in the last Royal Shootout this week before the Indy 500, just barely making it in, because in Indy, only the 33 fastest. There's no guaranteed starters like in F1, NASCAR, or other disciplines. And it was only Chevrolets that were involved in the shootout. The only Chevys that were not really struggling with speed was Ed Carpenter Racing, which saw several of their Chevrolets lead laps during the Indianapolis 500. But for the most part, the Penske teams, including Simona de Silvestro, were in the midfield area, and that's where they were pretty much running for most of the race. And we got to say, Simona, considering brand new team, when you've got a brand new team, a lot of unknowns going into that race, and this is the Indianapolis 500, they were running a very solid race. They were mostly in the midfield, as I mentioned, around 21st position. The team also delivered some very solid fast pit stops as well. We saw a lot of great racing in the Indianapolis 500, and considering the circumstances this year, and especially with Chevrolet, Team Penske equipment not being as fast as the Hondas we saw at the Indy 500, great effort by that team running a very solid race. During the first round pit stops, we saw essentially what became a big indicator of how the race was going to work out with pit road problems. Stefan Wilson locked up the rear wheels, brought out a caution flag. That essentially changed the dynamic of the race for everybody, including Scott Dixon, who was leading, big favorite. Essentially, that cost him any hope of getting the win. Later on, we saw more drivers lock up the back wheels and get spin or very loose entering pit road. The reason why this happens, there's no downforce. They're not going that high speed where they have all that downforce being generated over the wings. So when they all of a sudden hit the brakes, it was so easy for those rear brakes to lock up. And we even saw Will Power do this. But unfortunately, shortly after Will Power did this, when Simona de Silvestro was coming in to make her pit stop, she locked up, spun, and the right rear wheel looked out of place. Apparently, she had made contact with the wall as she was entering pit road. Her team was able to run out, bring her into the pit, so no full course of yellow like we saw with the first caution. And essentially, it was seen that her race was done. Very unfortunate, even though she had completed over 170 laps, the only two drivers that were out were, of course, Graham Rahal, who lost the wheel exiting pit road when the team failed to secure the wheel, and Stefan Wilson, who essentially crashed entering pit road in their first caution. So essentially a tough break for her to finish 31st when she was definitely having a pretty good, solid race, would have easily brought home a good top 20 finish, especially as we saw towards the end with that second caution. We saw the racing was really picking up, but definitely want to give a shout out to Paretta Autosport and the entire team for their very first Indianapolis 500 effort. Great to see Simona back at Indianapolis as well, and we encourage everyone in the chat room, which female drivers would you like to see in the Indianapolis 500? We know it's the greatest spectacle of all sports. It truly lived up to that hype, and seeing Simona and hopefully more female racers in that race will really add on. Definitely one of the big things. I know, Darren, you got pretty excited to talk about the GT World Challenge and the Iron Danes.
Yeah, the Iron Dames in Paul Ricard had a pretty interesting weekend. But talking about De Silvestro, I'm convinced that it's not the end of the 2021 season for Paretta Autosport, because in the post-race release from Paretta, they said that they are definitely considering more races this season. Even though no official announcement has been made to this date, but I'm quite sure that they have unfinished business in IndyCar. Back to the Iron Dames at Paul Ricard, they quite made history this last weekend in the south of France, because for the GT World Challenge Europe, it was the third round of the season with the 1,000 kilometer of Paul Ricard. And it was the very first time for a all-female crew to enter a car. But there were entries before in this series for the female entries before. One, namely Simona de Silvestro in last year's Nürburgring race. But never before two women had shared the same car. And this was the case for the Iron Dames, which were back in the Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo. They will always race in some really very competitive championship. Here we see Michel Gatting in Ferrari Challenge. Then they have the team in the European Le Mans Series. They have the team this year in World Endurance Championship. And it was the first time that they lined up one of their cars for the GT World Challenge Europe. The lineup was pretty interesting. One very young driver, Dorian Pin, 17-year-old French driver, who has been brought under the spotlight by the FIA Rising Stars program. She was one of the finalists there, and then picked up by Iron Dames. The other one is the former W Series racer Sarah Bovey, quite experienced GT driver, of course. And one of probably the most well-known female drivers in all motorsport around the globe, Catherine Legg, who has joined the Iron Dames squad from 2021. And she's also part of their WEC team. So it was an interesting lineup. Legg with the gold-rated driver, then the silver-rated driver, who is Dorian Pin for her age. Even though she's not massively experienced in GT cars, she is the silver driver. Then the bronze driver, who is Bovey, just because she's over 30. She's 31-year-old. So, as we previously said, this FIA categorization rules are not always making sense, but it is what it is. And this was the lineup for Iron Dames. It was a very clean race for them in such a long race, over 6 hours of length. And Bovey and Pin alternated behind the wheel in the first 4 stints. They had one hour stint each. It was a Bovey Pin, and then Catherine Legg jumped into the car for the final 2 hours. She double stinted into the night because, of course, being the most experienced driver, she was back behind the wheel for the night shifts. They have very clean race, no issues, managed very well traffic, which is one of the most important thing in such long endurance races. They qualified, there was a huge grid, it was 47 cars entering the race. They qualified in P43, which was 12th place in Pro-Am classify. And they finished 6th in class in Pro-Am, and they were P30 in overall classify. So definitely a very solid race for the Iron Dames. And Giacomo Piccini, who is the one of the 2 Iron Links team principals, commented that the Iron Dames car achieved all of its objectives first time out, completing the race and gaining position. So Dorian, Sarah, and Catherine have good reason to feel very satisfied with the place in history. So this was the comment of the Iron Links and Iron Dames team principal. But of course, it was not the only race that the Iron Dames were competing in last weekend. They had a very busy weekend. They were also at Brno in Czech Republic for the 3rd round of the Ferrari Challenge Europe season. Massively competitive in this championship is Michel Gatting, the Danish racer. And of course, she was coming from a massively important weekend at the Red Bull Ring. She had the two victories, 2 pole positions, and 2 fastest laps, and she had also claimed 1 victory at the season opener in the Monza. So out of 4 races, 3 victories, and she was obviously leading the standings. Coming into Brno, it was her first time in visiting the Czech racetrack. And she said that she was struggling a little bit on Friday in free practice. Even she was P3, and by her standards, she was struggling. And going into qualifying, though, there were 3 red flags, so a very interrupted session. And she only had time for 1 push lap, for 1 timed laps at the very end, with 4 minutes left on the clock. So a difficult situation for Michelle. She went out 1 single lap, put it on pole, and it was pole position for Michelle. Unfortunately, she had a good start, but even better, it was Italian driver Niccolò Schirò coming back to the championship after his pre-competitive season in 2019, starting from the 2nd row, 4th place for him, and he just found his way around the outside of turn 1 and went into the lead, and that was it for Michelle. She was basically spent all the race in the back of the Italian driver, but never found her way around Schirò. And so, and also there were 3 safety cars, so there were very few green flag laps, so very difficult for her to try to overtake him and find victory. And she still finished 2nd, which was very good for the championship, of course, because she's now starting with the season now coming into its second half. She also has to start thinking about long term about the championship, and that's exactly what she did in race 2. Even though she had another replay of qualifying in Sunday morning with again 2 red flags. Had again to putting on pole with just 1 lap, one time lap. She again did it, another pole position for Gatting, and this time it was like 6/10 from 2nd place, and she was also a little bit surprised about that pace advantage that she had. And coming into the race, Niccolò Schirò again had a massively important start. Even though Michelle defended well, she had studied well the first race on Saturday, and she defended and still went into P1 and spent the whole first part of the race, first 15 minutes of the race in 1st place. Unfortunately, Brno being a very heavy track on tire wear. She also had the fastest lap as she was defending from Schirò, and I think she asked a little bit too much from her tires in the first part of the race, and was struggling a little bit coming into the second half of the race. So Schirò did manage to go to move into first place, and there was some chaotic action into the final laps. Michel's main contender in the championship had a tire blown, so he retired, and that was quite a good news for Michel, because she was then attacked on the very last lap by Miroslav Weibo, who is the local driver, the Czech driver for Scuderia Pra, and Maciusz Weibo. So Miroslav is his father, who is racing together with his son in the 24-hour series race. Maciusz Weibo did manage to advance into second place and overtook Michel on the very last lap, while she was really struggling for tires. But again, still another podium, two podiums coming off of the Czech round with two pole positions and two podiums. Still great news for her from the championship perspective. She's now coming into the fourth round in Valencia with 29 points of advance of advantage over Wartik. So I would say it's looking good for Michel, who will be back with Rahel Frey and Manuela Gosner this weekend at Paul Ricard for the European Le Mans series. So Iron Dame's going back to their initial lineup in European Le Mans series this weekend.
That's going to be very exciting to see them all at Paul Ricard circuit. It's going to be something where we encourage everyone to be sure to follow Racers, the Girls Behind the Helmet, on their website, as they'll be following this race. And of course, this past weekend, one of the drivers we've talked about, but haven't talked about so much this year, Michelle Halder. Last year, she competed in TCR Germany and TCR Europe, earned a win, and had a very good season overall. This year, Michelle, she is now switching to TCR Spain, brand new series. First race at Circuit Navarra, and Michelle ran 3 great races. Race 1, she finished in 5th place while her brother Mike got that win. But in that second race, Michelle went out there, took her 3rd win of her racing career. Essentially a big win for her, and especially we saw a lot of racing in that second race, since that second race has a reverse grid. The 3rd race, she went on to finish 2nd place to make it 2 podiums and a top 5 finish for her first race weekend of the new TCR Spanish series. So very exciting. Mike won that 3rd race, so essentially it was a siblings sweep of the race weekend, brother and sister winning each one. Michelle wasn't the only female racer there at Spain that race weekend. We also had Alba Cano from Spain, who was racing the field. She comes with 7 starts, 3 wins, and 4 podiums to her racing resume. Race 1, she added another podium finish, making it 5 podiums with a 3rd place finish and the fastest lap of the race. However, race 2, we saw some bad luck. She was not classified after contact on the racetrack, damage to her vehicle, unable to finish that race, and that essentially affected her 3rd race, where she had to start in the pits. So that means while everyone's on the grid and get going, she had to be in the pits, wait for everyone to drive past, and then she could get going, essentially starting dead last. She was working her way up the field, really showing her talent, and unfortunately, her chances of a podium went down when she had to do a drive-through penalty. She still came home 5th place, so another top 5 finish. And of course, but definitely considering she got that podium in race 1, the fastest lap. Considering her young racing career, she has an impressive record already, and we're definitely very excited to see what she's going to do. And of course, congratulations to Michelle Halder on her win as well. And of course, one of the things we're going to be watching is Formula Regionals and the European Champ Alpine. Very exciting weekend that we had over there.
Yes, the Formula Regional by Alpine was back after the Monaco GP race. Back to back, they went to they remained in the south of France. They were also racing at Le Castellet, supporting the EGT World Challenge Europe. In this championship, we have 2 female drivers. One is Belen Garcia, also a W Series racer, and Lena Buller, Swiss driver that is stepping up from the Formula 4 Spanish championship. Both of them were racing in the Spanish Formula 4, and it will be this year they are racing for the first time in Formula 3 machinery. So they're both rookies in Formula 3 cars. And the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine is also racing with the Tattoos Formula 3 car that is also raced in the W Series. This is why Belen Garcia elected to do this championship in preparation for the all-female championship that she will be starting in less than a month's time now at the Red Bull Ring in Austria. Belen was missing from the Monaco round because, of course, she had to complete the 5-day test, the 5-day test testing program with W Series. But she was back, even though at the beginning of the season she was also she was just announced as a part-time driver there. She was not scheduled to race at Le Castellet, but she really wanted to be back because at Barcelona she had a very unfortunate round. She was knocked out of the races 2 times by another competitors. So she really wanted to be back and to show her progress made in testing. And I would say that she successfully did so at Le Castellet. She had a pretty tough first race on Saturday because while she was moving up the field, she was having a pretty good battles, and she was like in P26, P25, which was pretty good because in this championship there are always over 35 cars, so it's a huge grid. And she was having some good battles when she was pushed off the track by another driver, and when she hit the yellow sausage curb, which are pretty high and pretty heavy, she damaged her front wing. She had to, of course, to come back to the pits and fix the car and change her front wing. So she was all the way down to last place and finished in P30, unfortunately, which was not the result that she expected. But also more bad news from her came after the race, because the team, after checking the car, they found out that the broken front wing stuck underneath the chassis had actually damaged the chassis. So they had to change the chassis overnight for race 2. And that is never good news for a driver, because when you change the chassis, the car is never feels the same, because of course it's a totally different car. And when they put on the old setup that she had tested in both testing and in practice, and she had worked very hard on that to find the proper balance, she said that it was feeling very different and it just didn't work. So they had to find some more adjustments going into the race, and she obviously qualified last, because it's never easy to go straight into qualifying with a totally new car. She was back on decent pace for race 2, and again she managed to have a very good race this time. She finished in P24. On track she was P25, but after some penalties she finished P24. So made up 11 places in race 2. So definitely a very good race for Belen, who said that she's now finally happy with it, and she will now focus on W Series. On the other hand, Lena Buller had what she described as one of the most difficult race weekends of her career. Lena was starting. She had actually a pretty decent first race, even though she slipped down the order towards the end and finished in P29. Managed to again had a to climb back into Sunday morning in qualifying, and when she was P26, and actually showed pretty decent pace, because she was not that far away from the midfield in qualifying 2. But again, she had a pretty rough race 2 and finished in P30. So definitely not her best weekend. When she was coming from a pretty competitive weekend in Monaco, when she had managed to overtake 7 cars into race 1, which is obviously very, very tricky always in Monaco. So definitely a remarkable performance from Lena at her first year in Formula 3, and at the first time in the streets of Monaco. But at Le Castellet, which was a circuit that she already knew because she had competed last year in Spanish Formula 4. Not a great race for her, but we're sure that she will be back on her feet in the next race. From now on, we believe that Lena will be the only female driver from a regional European Championship, because of course, as we said, Belen will be focusing on W Series.
And with Belen going to W Series, definitely I think it's going to be very exciting. A reminder to all our viewers that Belen Garcia, as well as all the W Series racers, will be racing again this month. It's going to be a very exciting weekend to see the W Series return later this month. And we encourage everyone to subscribe to the Grid Network to be sure to follow all the action with the W Series. And one of the things we've been following, of course, is Extreme E. They had their second race weekend of their inaugural season. Essentially, the Ocean X Prix is in the book, and Molly Taylor is now a 2-time winner of the Extreme E Series. Molly and her teammate Johan Kristofferson secured their second win of their inaugural season, and this was a crazy race. For that first race, we saw a lot of dust and essentially became single file. This race, very technical aspect of the circuit that saw a lot of beating and banging, including that shootout race where we saw Sarah Price making a lot of contact, working her truck towards the front. But definitely when it came to the big final race, Molly and her teammate, when they got the reason of that secure victory was because we saw Jenson Button's team. They were out towards the front end to start the race, but the rear axle broke, so they were done. And then we saw contact between the Hamilton team, Rosberg's team, essentially Molly's team, and next thing you know, we saw Hamilton's team pull off to the side. They were done for. We even saw the red flag to recover both vehicles. This made it where it was a straight-out race between Molly and Jamie Chadwick. Jamie Chadwick, Veloce Racing. Last month, when we saw the two of them racing, they didn't get to even do a qualifying lap. Stefan Sarizan crashed really hard. Jamie Chadwick did not get to set a lap in that vehicle. This time, after advancing to the final round, finished second place, get that experience in a huge weekend for her and the Veloce team. Very exciting. We saw a lot of contact in this race, and definitely something worth following when they go to Greenland for the Arctic X Prix, August 28th and 29th. Of course, with Extreme E, we have a very unique format of one female racer, one male racer. You have to switch. We saw, I think, some of the best racing of this potentially new series, and I think when they go to the Arctic X Prix, it's going to be really exciting to see how everyone does, especially since it's a brand new terrain in the Arctic, Greenland, and definitely will be following that, and as well as all the upcoming races this weekend. We have a lot of racing coming up this weekend.
Oh, definitely. It's going to be really, really busy. And with one of the most important races of the year, I would say, definitely the biggest, which is the biggest GT race in the world. The 24 Hours of the Nürburgring, which together with Daytona and Le Mans are among the most important 24-hour race of the motorsport year. 11 female drivers starting at this race, among them Janine Schaffner, Kelly Schreiner, Celia Martin, Pipperman, Christina Nielsen, Laura Kreiham, Claudia Hurtgen, also the Extreme E driver, Chantal Prince, Sophia Gachot, and Fabienne Volvend and Jasmine Preissig. A lot important drivers here. The most important team, I would say, is the girls only team by WS Racing and sponsored by GT Tire. Kerry Schreiner, Celia Martin, Pipperman, and Christina Nielsen will be sharing the Audi R8 LMS for this team, and also on the same team but in another car will make her debut for this team is Fabienne Volvend, the W Series driver. While Janine Schaffner will be racing in the GT3 class, and Jasmine Preissig, a very experienced TCR driver, will be racing, of course, in TCR. So really important race and interesting to follow. Also at the Nürburgring Nordschleife will be kicking off its season, the WTCR, which is the World Cup of TCR. And this year, for the first time, we have a female driver in this championship, who is Jessica Bachmann. Jessica was racing last year in the TCR Europe, and she is stepping up to the World Cup. It's definitely something interesting to follow. Of course, 25 kilometers long track. The WTCR will be racing on a 3-lap race, starting from tomorrow. Also, we have Formula 4 in Italy, in Misano for the second round. We have Amda Alkubaisi and Maya Weog racing there. Also, Amda has done the pre-event testing this week, and she was really competitive. So we're definitely curious to see if she can continue this speed, bring this speed into the race weekend. Italian GT also racing in Misano, not Kerry Schreiner, of course, because she's racing at the Nürburgring, but we will have back in the series Francesca Linossi, who won the race last time out in Monza. ELMS again in Paul Ricard. We already talked about this with Rahel Fry, Michel Gatting, Emmanuel Gosner in the Iron Dames team. Also in Michelin Le Mans Cup, Dorian Pin and Sarah Bowie will make their first time, actually, because last time they couldn't take the start for a technical problem at Barcelona. Then we have STCC, the Scandinavian TCR, with Michaela Olin-Kotulinski, coming fresh from the podium in Extreme E. She will be back on a more conventional racetrack for her in TCR. TCR Denmark is starting its season at Ring Djursland with Louise Frost racing there for the first time. Then we have in US also many interesting races. GT World Challenge America, racing at Virginia International Raceway with our friend Erin Vogel, and also Taylor Hagler. Erin is also racing at the XDT Racing, who is doing the home race at Virginia Raceway. So it's going to be interesting to follow a race. And also, it's the first time that the series welcomes back spectators. So definitely welcome. And in the same weekend, we will have also the Lamborghini Super Trofeo North America with Ashton Harrison racing there. She won in the class last time out at COTA, and also had a third place to her name. So she started very, very well the season in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo. TC America with Olivia Askew, Samantha Tan, Lindsay Brewer, and Sally McNulty. So many females also on this grid. And in stock cars, we will have the Arca Menard Series West racing at Sonoma with Bridget Burgess, the 17-year-old from Australia, continuing adventure in stock cars in America. Last time out, she was P22 in Phoenix, and this is the second round of the season. So we will definitely looking forward to see her continuation of the season.
And we encourage everyone to be sure to follow Racers Girls Behind the Helmet. You can find it at racersbehindthehelmet.com. Take a full look at the calendar of all the races going on, and definitely be sure to follow each and every one of these races. It's going to be a very exciting week and so much racing going on. Very excited. And of course, right here on the Grid Network as well, we're going to be having exciting programming with Grid Live pre-race on Saturday, noon Eastern, and then Sunday at usually 90 minutes after the conclusion of the NASCAR Cup Series race, Grid Live wrap-up. Very exciting racing weekend. Definitely thank everyone for watching, and for Daniel Zeri at Racers Girls Behind the Helmet, I'm Joe Samaniego. We'll see you next time, and enjoy the races.
Joe Samaniego here. Want to invite you to go check out Publis. Publis is a dog clothing and accessory company based in Austria. 10% of each of your purchases goes to helping dogs in need, whether it's homeless, sick, or ill dogs. This is one of the reasons why we support it. Kiska here is a rescue dog from rural Alaska and our Grid office dog. We care about our furry buddies, and we know you do as well. Definitely check out Publis.com. There's a link on the video description, and by clicking on that link, you get a 10% discount on your purchase as well.